Hello and welcome to episode. I actually have no idea what episode number we're on. Maybe four, maybe five. Who knows? I have no idea. Do you know, Nick?
I think we're four, but we had a minor hiatus
Yeah.
on account of
So
you dying.
yes. So I did in fact die. No, I was very busy with uni and I had some computer issues. So unfortunately, we have been off for a while, but hopefully we will be back now and we'll be looking to put out regular shows for OCS and OPL. This one is an OCS show, so we have an OCS guest. So just want to say a welcome to the man, the best AD carry in the OCS,
Too kind.
self-proclaimed. So, thanks for coming on the show, man. How you doing?
No worries. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well.
Doing pretty well.
Excited to discuss the week, the future weeks of
All right.
OCS.
Well, I guess we will get started straight away. So we're going to be covering week 6 of OCS as well as doing predictions, kind of like the normal show. But I guess like maybe if there's some context from previous weeks which we've missed, like obviously we're going to know which teams are on top now. We know that Abyss has lost 2 games.
I don't.
I
Yeah,
guess we can. You don't know about that?
uh,
You weren't there.
I think I'd remember if that would happen, Scott. So yeah.
All right, Abyss is undefeated. No, so like we can, I guess, bring in some of that context, but we'll just mainly be discussing week 6 of OCS, predictions for week 7, and then just some generalized topic discussions. Now that we're getting pretty close to playoffs. All right, so I guess we'll start off with the match of the week, right? Actually, no, this one wouldn't be the match of the week. Be pretty close though. Be tied. So Sin Academy versus Abyss. So I guess a sum up on this is that the early game was just a lot of objective trading, right? Like trading towers on both sides of the map from like Sin and Abyss. I think Abyss did get a small advantage, right? And then it hit like the mid game, and I think Kuden got caught, and then there was like a mid tower fight where Paprez just randomly decided to die, and then it's just like a ton of team fights after that, which I guess compositionally Abyss went really solid for, and yeah, I guess they just ended up losing the game. Would you say that's a fair analysis of the game, guys?
I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, you can go first.
The early game was like in our favor. Like we got the first brick off, and there was like a few like individual mistakes about like Paprise. He was getting dove. He got dove in a spot where he shouldn't have gotten dove because of the way he was playing the lane earlier. And obviously Mike getting caught out in the mid game, and we have this like problem as a team where if one person dies, we like help everyone, and then we all just die, and we don't like to give up objectives and that sort of stuff. And I think that in that game, Sin definitely exploited that. When it came to, I'm not sure if it was intentional, but there were a lot of times where we'd get picked or someone would make a misplay, and then we'd all just pile in forwards, and we'd give Sin more an advantage than we should have. So I think that was overall in the game. But in regards to, I think we should have been able to win that game off the early game advantage, and it's just like slight misplays individually, like the Mike getting caught out, that sort of stuff that I guess prevented us from being able to close it out.
All right. What about you, Silver? What do you think?
Um, yeah, I watched like a fair bit of the game, and it looked like you guys kept getting caught out, which plays into like their comp. They've got like the Syndra, the Aurelia, Callista, so they really thrive on picks. And it was really close though. It was a close game. It was like tightly contested until the end. I think the game was over when they got Baron, or like they like bled you out after that. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
Listen, Sombre.
there's like one weird Baron play we made where we started the Baron, and then there was like miscommunication, and we ended up like trying to like finish the Baron, and then we turned on the Baron, and then we lost, and then we fought a fight around the Baron. It's just like a really like, if you, especially like, Baron is such an important objective. You lose that like at 25 minutes in, it's just very difficult to come back. And there was like a few other misplays about the game in the after the second Baron, which caused them to get it. But it was I think a lot of it was just like getting caught, and we weren't willing to like give up objectives after people were getting caught, and we were like trying to still defend things that we shouldn't be able to defend, and we bled a lot in the mid game when we shouldn't have as much.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to outline compositions. I guess I felt like the Sin Academy, like they picked up the Maokai, which is a big priority pick, and because Abyss was running like the Corki, and I can't remember what AD carry was. It was Xayah, right?
Xayah, yep.
Yeah, like when those team fights were happening at like 22, 23 minutes, and especially because I'm pretty sure Prelus got quite a few kills in the early game, right? He was like
Yeah.
pretty snowballed. Yeah, I just felt like there wasn't really any hope for Abyss winning those team fights when they were occurring. Like obviously the getting caught and stuff really didn't help either. But the compositional, or I guess the state time of the game that you guys were at, maybe very late game, you could see like a Xayah hyper carry. But I felt like at the point in the game where those team fights were occurring, and like you said, leading into that Baron, Abyss just couldn't really take those fights against that Maokai. And then once it got to the late game, I mean the game was already ending, right? For Sin, so the Xayah wasn't really in that state to hyper carry. I guess one thing to note, yeah, like you mentioned about Peprise dying up in top lane, but I think Tekka had a decent performance in this game, right? Which
Yeah.
is I guess a top laner which not really a lot of expectations around.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise to see them pick Aurelia, but Tekka, I think in last season or whatever, he like played a lot of Aurelia, so it wasn't. It was like it's something that he has got like a legacy game, legacy play on it. So I think perhaps him going towards more of a comfort champion helped out when it came to the way they were playing. But it was a bit interesting because I think Sin is a team that plays really heavily through their bot side, like Squidgy. We had him on the show, and a lot of their games they won was through like late game team fighting around Squidgy. But this game, that wasn't how Sin won. Like it was really off the back of their solo laners and Praless getting like advantages and getting picks off. It was like a very much a different game that Sin were playing against us than they had shown in previous games. And I think
Right.
a big part of the reason why Tekka was playing a lot better was because of the added jungle pressure they had towards his side of the map. Whereas in previous weeks they definitely let like just put him on an island, and in this week, obviously they saw a lot more pressure being given to him, so he had a lot more freedom to farm up and control team fights on the Aurelia.
I
Right.
think the Maokai is like it's really good for that kind of play style because you've got 3 damage threats in the solo lanes and the bot lane. So just like once you drop the Maokai ult, it's just like just lets Kalista free hit, which is what they want to do, right? They want Squidgy to pop off. So I think it was a good draft from them, in my opinion.
Yeah, blue side drafting is I can't remember what the win rate is, but blue side drafting is very much favored in the current meta. I feel. I think it's
Definitely,
like a
yeah.
70%
Yeah, definitely based
win
on
rate.
like counter picks and
Yeah, like being able to get the first pick off the Maokai, you can get a lot of good first picks off. There were a few misplays in the draft that I don't really want to go into, because we're still playing OCS, but uh, I think it was related to the draft. It was just a bit of a misread on the meta and what champions were playing, and I guess not necessarily realizing that Sin would be able to play more styles than they'd shown before. So definitely props to Sin on their draft and their way they played the game.
All right. Well, something which I do want to mention from the draft, which definitely did happen, Nick. It's happened in the past, so I'm okay to mention it, right? That you did ban 2 AD carries.
We did.
In the draft. That did happen.
That did
All
happen.
right. No
we did
secrets
that
have
too.
been.
So pretty sure everyone's scared of his Trist and his Kate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was actually what I was about to ask you,
He's
Sombre.
so good
What
at
do you
those
think?
champions.
What do you think of Squidgy, and does he warrant the double ban?
Yeah, I'd definitely say like they want to play around him, and those champs are the best to play around, given the meta. With Arden Sensor being back in as well, it's like why would you give him Trist or Kate? You can just put him on a champ that you can just CC to death.
Yeah.
And especially Trist late game is like you can't do anything against that.
Yeah.
Especially given how well he plays it.
Yeah, Squidgy, like the way they were playing before is very much around late game team fights, and Caitlyn is just like very much very much a very broken champion. And Tristana is, I think, Squidgy's individually his best champion, and obviously is a very strong hyper carry. So that was the idea around the draft, was to put. I think we did got what we wanted from like the prep. uh, we got him, like he was playing Kalista and Rakan, like Yuzuki and Squidgy were playing Kalista and Rakan, and that's much more of a utility bot lane, rather than them playing the hyper carry. It was just Chaz and Tekka played a lot better this week than I think they played in previous weeks, and especially Tekka. I think he had a very strong game where in previous weeks I don't think he was performing as well as he showed in that week. So in relation to that, I think that definitely Sin seemed like a much more well-dimensioned team than they showed in previous weeks, where it was very much just focused around Squidgy. And in this week, and hopefully in future weeks, they'll be able to play a much more dynamic play style.
All right, I got a good question then to round out this segment. Is Sin Gaming, Sin Academy, sorry, better than Abyss Esports? Are they the better team? Who would you be more scared of playing against, Sombre?
I think they're evenly matched, but it really just comes down to draft because like both teams have really strong players in solid lanes, I'd say, and I'd give the edge to Abyss's bot lane just based on the experience and like the caliber of players. So it's definitely an even matchup. And if this were a semi-finals matchup, I wouldn't know who to choose.
All right,
They're
you know you
quite
don't have to be
close.
nice, right? Just because Nick is here, like you can't just be
Yeah.
like Abyss is shit. They
No,
suck.
Abyss are really good.
No. You don't have to say that. You know, just because
Maybe we
Nick's
can
here.
reevaluate after this week.
Oh, it's a challenge. All right, because you're playing against Nick this weekend. Oh, not playing against Nick
Yeah,
because
I am
Nick's not a player anymore.
I'm actually subbing myself in. I'm not quite
You're
sure what
subbing
role I'm
yourself
gonna
in.
play in. Yeah, but I'm
Tired of
going
this
to be
shit.
subbing
Just
myself
play
in.
all 5 roles
Yeah.
and see what happens.
All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to the next series. So the next series for the week was Outlaws versus Corvidae. So I was actually reasonably surprised with how close this was, because Outlaws 5-1, Corvidae 1-5, and their win was a forfeit.
Forfeit. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, not looking good for the Corvidae roster. Effectively, they've not won a single game. So I was very surprised at how close this was. And I was surprised at how close it was because it was close from the side lanes, right? It seemed to be like Tucker didn't seem to be involved in a lot in the early game, and he did seem to be their best player by quite a large margin. So this game was very close, and Outlaws ended up just taking a big team fight in the late game, if I remember correctly, and then they managed to get Baron, and it ended very quickly, but it was very close up until it ended, is I guess the way to sum it up. I don't know. You guys agree with that? I guess we'll do Nick first, or we'll do Sombre first.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
snuck
I'll
in.
go first. I don't know. I feel like it's really frustrating to watch Corvidae because they seem to get leads every week and they just don't do anything with them. Like they'll literally just sit in like the midpoint of each lane and just not group or look for any macro plays, and then the game just falls apart because I don't know. I just think they're all subpar players on paper. That's the reason they last, right?
Yeah.
I think in relation to the whole, it was close right up until it wasn't. I think that's a big reason about how the current meta is. Like it's very much just tanks and engage, and if you win that cataclysmic team fight at 25 minutes in and you take Baron, it's very hard to like get back into the game. Like, if you've got tanks and against another tank, whoever has more gold is just gonna win. There's no real room for outplay. And I think that shows a bit with that game. Like it was pretty close. Outlaws were making like a few mistakes when it comes to like getting picked and that sort of stuff. But I think the way that Outlaws have been drafting throughout this entire split, they've been playing a lot of control mages with heavy AP like Oriana and Vladimir, and one game of Corki, and they've just been looking towards playing mid game to late game team fights and winning them, and then they win the team fights and then they win the game. And this game, it was just like a speed bump in the early game with them getting ganked. I remember like the level 3 gank bottom lane that probably was a little bit disrespectful, that sort of stuff, but it was just really like a minor speed bump. A lot of the times when a first place team faces a last place team, it doesn't really matter what happens in the early game. It's just like you need to have such a big gold advantage in the early game to offset the player difference. Like Ozza versus Rain, that's those sort of matchups. Like Ozza's gonna have to have a lot more gold than Rain to offset that player matchup. And um, as Somber said, Corvidae, I remember one game they were playing against Sin Academy. They had the winning 1-4 and in both sides, and they just sat mid for like 20 minutes, not even looking towards pressuring. any objectives in the red side jungle had control over. No vision control, no snowballing into more towers, no roaming from lanes. They seem to just not have developed at all macro play, and it reflects in the way that they play the game. It's very much just like it doesn't seem to matter how many kills they get, as you don't transition that to objectives. It doesn't really mean anything.
I mean, if they are picking up all these kills and stuff, though, I guess does that show maybe they are like decent players individually, but they're just suffering from, I guess, like you said, that lack of macro play, maybe coaching problems. Yeah, I guess I hit that one to Sombre first.
Yeah, I think they're definitely like mechanically gifted. Like in the mid position, definitely attackers very good. But outside of that, like they just don't seem to have any idea what to do once they get a lead.
Yeah,
Right.
individuals.
They're, bit like us.
Individual skill is much more than just like laning ability and team fighting ability and stuff like that. Like a player can be good individually if they're smart, and that's part of roster strength. Like you can have really good mechanically players, and they can be like weak individually because of how poor their macro understanding is. And I think that's sort of a big thing with with Corvidae. Something else to notice about Corvidae is they play. I think they just play. They don't really come in with many expectations, and they just like throw themselves. Like Zaita is a mid main swapping to support. Baba Bushka, he was playing on. Didn't he play a game with you guys?
Yeah, he played support for us
Yeah.
against Cinecad
Yeah.
for like 1 week.
I mean, like, you just haven't. If you just got like role slot players, your last place anyway, it definitely creates like a game play of like, all 50/50s are good for us, so we're just gonna go for them, and then it just creates like a sloppy game. But I definitely think if like Outlaws maybe should have been a little bit more respectful about that in the early game, because if you look at their comp on paper, there's like no team fight at 25 minutes in plus that they lose, and they should have just been playing much more respectfully in the early game and looking towards playing their win conditions. But as I said, it doesn't. A lot of the times, it just doesn't really matter. When if you're getting the early game advantages with the early game comp, but they're not too sizable and you can't snowball on them. If the better team has got the better late game scaling comp, as long as they get to that win condition, they're just going to win, and that's what happened with Outlaws.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, I definitely agree with that. I guess worst teams, it tends to like be a case of looking to snowball out the game, right? Because once it does hit that team fighting phase, especially against Outlaws, because I mean, something which I did want to talk about is, I guess, the composition that Outlaws was playing. They're playing the Orianna and the Renekton again, and I guess the the way that those champions function in those mid game team fights, and I guess Willaris as well playing the Orianna really well. Not really a whole lot of chance of them losing those team fights. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I do actually want to mention for Outlaws because again, they've played this Orianna, this Renekton, very similar team comps pretty much every week. Do you guys think that I guess this could potentially be an area for exploit for teams, or do you think maybe they're just picking up these champions anyways? What do you think, Sombre?
I think they could play around mid more. Mid seems to be like their staple, or the top lane. Like I feel like the top lane is not as strong when they don't get Renekton, so they could definitely, like teams versing them could look to play around Willaris, who always sticks to the control mages and just looks to like control the pace of the game. Their bot lane's really solid, so I wouldn't bother playing around them if I was an opponent.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that guy's really talented. Their new top laner.
Curse. Yeah.
I think he'll pop off in the coming weeks.
Yeah. In relation to like Renekton and Orianna, I think they shouldn't. If they've only shown that small of a champion pool, you just have to play around it in draft and see what else they have to offer. And it's a bit weird because OCS is still best of one. So even though we're coming into week 7, we've only seen 6 games. Six games, and in that time, teams have played a lot of scrims. So it's very likely that Outlaws have scrimmed with other champions. Like it's very unlikely you're gonna just be scrimming with Renekton Orianna because they just play them in OCS. It doesn't seem to be something they need to practice, but still, I think you definitely need to play around it in the drafting phase in the upcoming weeks and see what else they have to offer, because the one game they didn't get Orianna, Like they first picked Vladimir against Atletico, and they just like fell apart. So it definitely seems to be an area of exploitation for them. Like if you're just got very small champion pools, you have to test it and see what happens from there. It's just like you have to do it if they've got small champion pools and find out if they do. And it's hard to tell if they do have small champion pools or if they're just, if teams keep giving you your best champions, you're just going to take them all the time, right? It's important you win these games. So
Yeah.
definitely something that teams could look to exploit when it comes to just seeing how deep their champion pools really are in the solo laners. In relation to Curse, I've talked to a few top laners about him, and he seems to be like a very very strong individual player. Like he's quite high ranked in solo queue, and he plays like a lot of carry oriented champions. Like he plays Kennen and Camille, as well as obviously the Renekton. And I think individually he is probably one of the best, probably the best top laner in the OCS. But um, something about him is that I'm fairly sure he's not a native English speaker. And Outlaws is a team that they don't really play as much of strong laning advantages. They play off like team fights and more macro play, and they've definitely got an upgrade over Flick when it comes to the individual matchup. But his playstyle is very aggressive, very much reminiscent of Artiferns and of Paradise. And we've seen in these games, in Artiferns consistently gets picked on and he dies a lot. So maybe that's something that other teams can look towards with Curse, because it seems to be, at least watching his solo queue, that he plays a very aggressive style and plays a lot of very aggressive champions. But I definitely think that he's a player to watch out for in coming weeks, and I'm excited to see how he progresses, because it's always fun seeing more talent coming in, especially in a relatively talent dry position in top lane.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think that the top laner does look very good, and yeah, definitely if he does have what he says you do, what you say he does in terms of qualities, it'll be a big upgrade on Flick. Because I mean, Flick was kind of just a mediocre top laner, right? Like almost Renekton one trick. Renekton is like Renekton Poppy player, right? Very very small champion pool, a very small effective champion pool, um, for that player. And yeah, I mean, Curse did seem to play alright in this game, right?
They had a few mishaps, but you could probably put that down to like communication issues, given that he doesn't speak English that well, apparently, like Nick said. So I'm sure in the coming weeks they'll be a lot better, a bit more cohesive, and they'll take easy wins, assuming they get the champs that they're favored on.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's only actually one more week before I guess playoffs happen, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I guess there's only going to be one more opportunity. And yeah, I mean, I do agree with Nick. Like, if teams are just giving you those same champions over and over again, and you can just show nothing, then you may as well just pick the champions, right? But I guess it is going to be interesting to see if playoffs hit, because maybe the first team they play in playoffs just bans those champions out, right? And then they're just sitting there shitting themselves. Or maybe they're not shitting themselves. Maybe they think they can play out the champions, but they just can't play them to that same quality, right? And maybe we just see an Outlaws getting knocked out in the semifinals. Like, I guess it's, I guess it's something to think about.
I'm sure
Um,
they're preparing for that already, and they're trying lots of different champs like right now.
oh yeah,
If they're
definitely.
not, then
It's whether or not
I'd be worried about them for semifinals.
yeah. All right. In terms of, I guess, just to round out the Outlaws of Scorvaday series, or game rather, because best of one OCS, because I did go a bit off track there. Is yeah, I felt like one player who did have a pretty poor performance in this game was K-pop, right? I felt like he was dying a lot. Sometimes in place of his teammates, and sometimes just randomly dying, which I guess is a surprise. I thought K-pop was going to be, like he did have that OPL experience. I thought he was going to be playing um a lot better. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of the Outlaws bot lane, Nick?
The Outlaws bot lane, they definitely don't seem to play around them. Whereas in previous splits, like Rain was the carry of Outlaws, and he seems to be taking a step back when it comes to the carries. Like they play very much focused around the Renekton. It doesn't seem to matter what player, but he seems to be. I think Rain individually, like there are a lot of good ADCs this split in OCS. And I think he's right up there when it comes to his individual skill. In relation to K-pop, I don't necessarily rate him as highly as I rate the other supports in OCS like Yuzuki, obviously Mike Lee Kuden. I don't think he's as impactful on the game as them, but his champion pool matches that. Like he's playing a lot of Tom, and there's just more supporty support champions, and you can't really shine on that. And it's a bit tricky to tell. I think that Outlaws bot lane, at least the way they're playing at the moment, won't lose any games for their team, but they're not going to win any games for their team. They're not looking to pop off, but they're just there to scale into team fights, and they play the team fights quite well. Like I think Rain is particularly quite a strong ADC.
Right, okay. Do you have any final
Yeah.
comments on the game, Sombre, or on the bot lane?
I think their team is kind of similar to how Noxide was in Split 1. Like their bot lane is just, they kind of just go even, and they're not expected to carry because they focus all their attention to the solo lanes. So I could definitely see them just sticking to that style because it's working for them. Obviously, they're like 5-1 right now,
They're
6-1.
6-1. Yep.
Yeah, so I think
5-1.
the bot lane is like middle of the pack to in the upper end, but they don't need to do any better, in my opinion, because the style they have seems to work quite well.
Alrighty. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the next game for that night. So that was Atletico versus Legacy. So this was a very entertaining game, which I'm gonna be honest.
Interesting.
It was. I I thought one team was gonna win it. I thought Atletico was gonna win it because the early game was really back and forth, and there was like a lot of kills up in the top lane for Atletico. Like Otta week after week now has just been inting. It's like I actually have nothing else to say other than okay, so for me in this game, right, I felt like there were 6 players on Atletico, right? Because Artifins was playing for Atletico. And then out of the 4 players that were playing for Legacy, there was actually only one player, and that was Harry. And he was just going huge. Like, I ask you which players are on Legacy Genesis, and you're just like, you'll give me 5 players, but no, it's literally just one. All you need to say is Harry, and you've covered the team. And he was going huge. In that series and really onto them. But anyways, I kind of went off topic there. But there was like a lot of back and forth in the early game, and then I think Atletico picked up a Baron, and there was like a heap of split pushing coming up from 5 to 8, and he picked up I think they picked up double inhibitor, and then there was like a team fight from Legacy Genesis, and they pick up the Baron, and the game just ends really quickly after that, right? Have I summed that up? Did I give a good sum up on the Legacy Genesis team as well?
I think
I don't know who wants to go first.
It was really interesting because Trundle like wins the 1v1 matchup against Kled, but like Arda wasn't playing around like pressure at all. Like he was just like going in um Smork style, and he was just like, I win the 1v1 matchup, top lane is 1v1, therefore I win the game. And he was just like going in hard, and then he was suddenly 0-3, and Kled had like much more items than him, and crucially had the executioner's calling, which meant that he won the split push against Trundle. And like a Trundle that's losing split push is like entirely useless. Like he's terrible in team fights pretty much. He's really only there for split pushing, and he was losing the split, and it was like a 4v5 game. But I think the thing that was interesting about Legacy was that I think Harry was like bridging the gap until Draklon on Kog'Maw could like take over the game, because a Kog'Maw Janna, like it gets to a certain point in the game that you can't really deal with it, and Atletico had quite a short range comp like Sivir, Cassiopeia, and Kog'Maw gets like more range with the W, and so at a certain point in the late game, like they just don't really have any tools to deal with Kog'Maw. They don't have like long range champions. So they just sort of get front to backed, and Kog'Maw will win. So it was a really entertaining series. I liked Aladoric on the Blitzcrank. I forgot to mention him as a support, but I think that he's really good at like this roaming based playstyle. Like he's good on the Thresh, and obviously his Blitzcrank was quite good in the early game. I think that was like a funny sort of thing where it came to just the blitzcrank pick running around. It definitely showed the way that Atletico played and the way that Legacy play, where Legacy play like a 4-1 style and Tilting plays like passive supports, and then Atletico just play like psychos, Aldolic running around the map, 5-8 split pushing on Kled, that sort of stuff, and it was quite an entertaining game. Um, I think this game could have gone either way, and it's just like little stuff, and I think that little stuff was hairy to bring Legacy over the edge, and sometimes the better team is just whichever. If there's one player in your roster that can just pop off and carry you through.
All right, what do you think, Sombre?
Yeah,
I mean, you've played with a lot of these players, right? Like,
yeah, I
it
was
was
watching
Atletico versus Legacy, so you've got like Otter, you've got Padoink, and you've got
Dan Dane.
Dane. So it's like
Just
three
watching
fifths of your team, right?
all my old friends fight. It's very
Yeah.
rough for me to watch. It was like a really back and forth game, and I think Harry was like the MVP of the game and probably the week because he just stalled and stalled until they got 6-item Cogmore, which just rips through Sejuani and the Sivir Blitzcrank and Cassiopeia. They just can't touch Cogmore, especially given that they've got like a Trundle and Gragas front line. Well, I mean, Trundle wasn't really in the fights because he was like, I'm pretty sure he's like clearing waves for the last like
Yeah.
10 minutes
He's
of the
trying
game.
to stop
in
5-8
the base.
to end the game.
But he built like Knight Zhao and like really team oriented stuff. But yeah, no,
But
sorry.
yeah, like a Cogmore with a front line like a Gragas and then a Janna backing him up, there's no way you win against that late game. Like, especially with how short range the champions are, like Nick said. Sivir just straight up loses late game as well because she falls off hard compared to the Cogmore. And Sejuani just stacks health, so of course you're going to get ripped through. So it's really good of Harry to just keep them in the game until Cogmore got to his item spikes. So yeah, it was a good game overall. Very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, Harry definitely was. He definitely was breaching that gap. Like he was stuffing that gap full of Atletico bodies. So I think he got like 12 kills in that game, right? So
Yeah, something like that.
pretty insane. But I guess a question I do have for you then, Somber, because you said you had friends on both teams, right?
Mhm.
Who were you rooting for?
I was rooting for Atletico because of the implications on the standings. Because then
right.
if we won, then we could have finished like 6th or something and no relegations. But really, I was like on the fence outside of playoff implications.
It's
Like
not good enough.
standings.
You're being too nice, sitting in the middle.
Oh,
It's like
the
before when
Otterfans
you
is
said
my best friend. All right, so I was rooting for Legacy then. We'll say Legacy.
so you're rooting for Legacy? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I was gonna
because-
say before because you said your old friends were playing against each other, but to be honest, in Otter's case, I felt like he was just getting a beating. I don't think it was playing against each other. Anyways,
It's playing PvE.
he's
The last
playing
15
PvE.
minutes.
That's true, yeah. I guess yeah, I guess from your guys' point of view as well, because I know that there was a point where Atletico did have the 2 inhibitors, but I felt like they kept on sacrificing a lot of people to pick up the objectives. Like, you know, there'd often be times where Kled would just, or I think Kled died on the split push one time to get one of the inhibitors, and then like to get the dragon, the Elder Dragon, like Sejuani died instantly. So it's like a lot of, I guess, sacrifice when they were picking up each of these objectives. Do you think that Atletico should have won the game, Nick?
Honestly, these games are like 50-50, to be honest. Like, it's just, they're not 50-50, but they're just very close, and it just comes down to whichever, it's just whichever team makes as little mistakes as possible. Like, OCS, mistakes happen all the time, but no one plays a perfect game. It's just whoever makes less mistakes as possible, and whoever wins the cataclysmic team fights that inevitably happen. And Legacy, like, I think they drafted a bit better towards those cataclysmic team fights, and Sin went Sin and Atletico weren't able to play around the win conditions of like making blitz with Blitzcrank, because I think the Blitzcrank pick was really smart. The Blitzcrank could have he can't really get bullied as much in the laning phase. Like Janna is shit scared of getting hooked, so she can't really pressure, and he can start to looking towards making roams with Sejuani, and Sivir is perfectly fine 1v2ing against a Cogmore Janna. And he did get picks off in the early game, but you need to be able to snowball that into more, because Blitzcrank in the late game, unless he gets a hook onto Cogmore or Cassiopeia, against a Janna that's building I can't remember what the item's called. It gives you attack speed and that sort of stuff. What's it called? I can't remember.
Ardent Sensor.
Ardent Sensor. You know,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
building all those stupid support items again with the Cogmore, and it's just you just have to make more happen with the Blitzcrank pick and Athletico. It was just a really like rushed game from both sides, and and that time when it's just really rushed and no one's really has control of the game and it's just 50-50, it just comes down to whichever team gets the late game scaling off. And Legacy had the advantage there with the Cogmore with longer range and the Ajana building Ardent Sensor and those sort of items. But definitely, like if you get 2 inhibs down, you should be able to win the game. Like it's just as a general rule, if you get 2 inhibs down, you should be able to win the game. But it just comes down to those little things like, being able to set up objectives properly so that you don't have to sacrifice people to get them. Those sort of mistakes that cost Atletico the game.
Right. Okay. I guess would you agree with that sort of, I guess, sentiment? Maybe I guess first thing I'd ask you, should Atletico have won the game? And I guess do you agree with that sentiment about OCS, where it's kind of just like a lot of the time just a giant cataclysmic team fight in the late game and just like
Well, it doesn't have to be in
people.
the late game. It can be in the early game. It's just like every game is just some some cataclysmic
I
team
think
fight that
every
happens.
game is like decided on a coin flip moment. As in, like one team just goes for like a really poor play or a good play, and the other team doesn't react or they play poorly, and then that's just it. Most games is decided in like one distinct moment. But I think Atletico, like, they manage their waves really poorly to have 2 inhibitors down, or to have killed 2 inhibitors and not be able to end the game just based off pure minion manipulation. Like sometimes they'd be doing something, they'd be like warding in the jungle, and Kled is like 3/4 up the lane. Like that just doesn't really make sense for finishing the game out macro wise.
Sorry about that, guys. Nothing happened. You didn't see any transition. So we were just talking about I guess just ending off on the Legacy versus Atletico series. So in regards to that, uh, so Atletico probably should have won the series. They built up a huge advantage, and I guess like you did mention that teams kind of building that composition for the late game and then getting there. But I guess like it was kind of on a knife's edge, right? Like there was a real good chance that these players like tilting on the Jana, the Cogmore for Legacy Genesis, that they wouldn't have been able to if Atletico had just been that little bit better. So I guess that is the other side of the coin. Anyways, I guess we'll move on to Lynx versus Noxide. So Noxide is my favorite team. They've got my favorite AD carry, Sombre. It's the smartest AD carry
Too
and
kind,
best AD
sir.
carry in the league. I know I'm too kind. Um, so yeah, I guess we can just talk a little bit about this game. If I remember correctly, this was a pretty close game for the early game, and it was another one which just sort of ended really quickly on I think it was 2 sets of fights, right? Um,
Yeah.
and some tower trading, if I remember correctly as well, where you guys like traded a whole bunch of towers, particularly in like the mid lane. Um, yeah, and if there was one other thing that I do remember, I believe Jopan played really well in this game on the Gnar, right? But yeah, and then Lynx just sort of picked up those team fights, and it was kind of over. Did I get that one right, Somber? Is that how it felt?
Yeah, it's pretty much that's it down to the T. We the game was even for about 10 minutes and then just kind of exploded with some poor macro choices on our half, just like trading a bot out of for an inhib tower or something crazy like that. And then we just picked like horrible fights based on, or we had really poor comms in that game. And yeah, it just blew up from there. Like you can't do a lot given the 2 mistakes that we made in a row with picking bad fights, and that was pretty much the nail in the coffin.
Nick?
I think a big story of this game was the junglers. I think that Bose definitely had a lackluster performance, especially against a non-jungle main. Like Nana is a mid lane main, and it seemed that Nana had a lot more pressure in the early game. Like your comp, I felt was very much focused around just chilling in the bottom lane with Callisto Rakan and just repeatedly killing the Jace top lane with Talia, Na, and the Sejuani. And like the early gank mid came off, which inhibited the Talia pressure, giving Cassiopeia like the early game advantage, and then off of the back of that, like the win condition of getting Talia to shove is a lot harder because he's probably not going to be winning that 1v1 matchup, and he wasn't until the lane stabilized. But you know, he still got like the picks off onto Jace, which was important that you guys get. But I think that as Sombre said, like a few of the team fight engages and a few of the just not even the choices, but a few of the engages were just like flubbed completely. I can remember a few Sejuani ultis going wide. That just, you know, it doesn't really matter if the fight was good enough. You don't hit your engages off an execution heavy comp with Kalista, Rakan, Sejuani. It's just not going to work out. And definitely, I think that Lynx had the easier to play like front to back comp with Cassiopeia and Xayah, but I think your comp definitely has merit. It's just a bit harder to execute, and you guys weren't able to.
Definitely agree with that. It was a comp that was like we were succeeding with in scrims the whole week, but things just fell apart on game day. Yeah, I guess it's just the jitters. Like everyone plays differently on game day, and happened to us the worst time.
Yeah, I mean, it was like Bose as well. Like, did get some good stuff done. Like, I remember, you know, he like got a gank on top lane, went to go towards mid lane, then he like blows Cassiopeia's flash, and I'm like, oh, awesome, blew the flash.
And then
he
you like flash
like
forward.
flashes on top of Cassiopeia, and I'm like,
Disaster.
oh, okay, all right. This is like I thought it was good, but this is how it's happening. I see how it's going down. So I guess that was a little disappointment. Like there was some, I guess, really good things coming up from Noxide. You know, like particularly, I guess, signs of life coming up from us. The mid lane as well, right? I'm pretty sure there was like an almost solo kill for Relics too, if I remember correctly on that one. And I guess Gnar as well. Gnar picked up solo kills or kill. I think one kill was in gank, one kill was solo kill. So I guess there was like a lot of, I guess, positive things coming out of Noxide. But yeah, I guess just unfortunate. I don't know. What's it like playing with this team, Sombre?
Not really sure if I want to like air any dirty laundry or whatever, like say anything really bad, but we've had like internal issues all split, which is probably pretty apparent given how we play. Our drafts are like pretty bad week to week. Our comms are awful, and just like players' work ethic, and you know, list goes on. How things are bad. We're kind of just like a TMB split two. That's how I would define us.
Right.
So we have decent players on paper, but we just don't have the team play to match the other teams in the OCS.
All right. I guess what about your bot lane partner as well? Because you're playing with Real Opal, right?
Yeah, I worked with
yeah.
Rolapple.
Yeah. So both of you guys had some experience. Well, what do you think of Real Opal? You enjoyed playing bot lane with him? Because you guys seem to do all right in the 2v2.
Yeah, he's very much like John Riggy, my last support. Like it's kind of similar in the sense that we're both passive, but we kind of guide the team with you know, macro decisions and whatnot. Yeah, he's a really good support, and I've enjoyed playing with him. Just a shame that we couldn't get more wins. Maybe there were some games we could have won, but it's alright. It happens.
All right. Okay, so I guess talking a little bit about the other side, Lynx. So Lynx have gone through a solid 5,000 roster swaps, as well as the organizational swap from Alpha Sydney. Now, I was personally a fan of this week's roster because it had Christmas trees on it. So Christmas trees is, you know, Sombre, you can be my favorite ADC. Christmas trees is my favorite mid laner. And, you know, that Xayah may
That's
have
fair
been in the
enough.
ADC role, but he's a mid laner at heart, right? I guess what do you guys think about Lynx? Like, assuming they have the same roster again, like, because they're on the cusp of achieving playoffs, right? If they'd have to win against Outlaws next week, but there's like a chance they make playoffs. So what do you guys think of Lynx? Like, we'll just pretend they're using the same roster again next week.
What do I
Do you
think?
want to go first, Nick?
I can
Yeah.
go first. I think they're pretty terrible, to be honest. You can't have rosters like going week to week like that with no consistent scrims with being a consistent team. Like I feel like a lot of their wins were when they had what's his name, Yaxuli in the jungle. I thought they were much more formidable as a team because he seemed to be a jungler that was proactive in the early game and actually had some semblance of an idea of how to jungle. But I don't really blame Nana for having uh, being a bad jungler in my opinion because he's not a jungler. Like I don't think Scott is too pissed off if I tell him that he's a bad Victor mid lane player. He's just not trying to be. I think that's a similar case here with Lynx. As much as I love Christmas trees and Sleepy in the bottom lane, I'm pretty sure his name's Adrian. I think they're pretty subpar. Like, I think that Christmas trees is a Xayah one trick if you got your solo queue. I don't really think they've got any hope to beat Outlaws, to be honest, as much as it would be fun to watch Christmas trees win his fourth competitive game in almost 2 years. I think they're pretty bad as a team, and they've got very much. You can't be a good team if you've got like role slot players and players that are without a doubt very washed up and don't really care anymore, like Christmas trees.
Oh,
Woof.
that is
Savage.
rough, man.
So yeah, I don't particularly rate Lynx. Their old roster when they had Kedu, Shenchuan, um, Nana slash a middle, Yaxuli and Panda. I think they were quite a formidable team, at least individually. But I mean, they've lost so many players since then. I guess a player that I think is quite good is Panda. Like if you watch the game that we played against him, we showed him a lot of respect in the drafting phase. Like we banned out Riven and Renekton and Fiora and Jax and all these top lane champions that he could pop off on, and we banned them all because we identified him as a strong player when he gets on those champions. But I think the rest of the roster is definitely weak. Um, and I don't know. And they're macro play as well. Like you just can't be good macro, have a good macro play if you've got rotating rosters. So in regards to them competing against like the top teams, I don't really think they have much of a chance.
All right, well, that's a bit dark. I was confident that Christmas trees is winning OCS. Like I know that I said he was going to win OPL in his sudden fear split and they got relegated, but this time I'm
This
confident.
time you said they'll
This
win.
is yeah. I mean, if he can take down Moxide, he can take down anyone, right?
That's true.
It's
The
the
split
spirit.
one dream team.
The split one dream team. Yeah.
Except we're not the dream team anymore.
Oh no, Sombre, you're making me so sad, man. All right. I guess is there anything else you guys want to say on the series, or I guess about the teams in general, before we move on to our MVPs for the week?
No,
Sombre.
No, pretty much it.
Alrighty. So MVPs for the week. So basically, you guys pick a player, I pick a player, and that is our MVP for the week. So actually, maybe next week, Nick, maybe we should do like an MVP for each role for the regular season because
okay.
it's like the final. Maybe we'll do like
You
a
do
big show
realize
next
I'm
week.
associated with the team, Scott,
You are associated
and I
with the
can't
team,
pick
but
myself, so I'm a
I'm
bit confused on what to do.
I'm trusting you not to be biased. Plus, if Abyss
What
gets
me
wrecked
bias?
by
What?
Noxide, if Abyss gets wrecked by Noxide this week, which
There's no
Somber has
coming back
assured
from
me,
that.
has assured.
You'll all have to retire if you lose to us this week. Like to be honest,
Yeah,
you guys,
well,
you guys should hang up the keyboards.
Somber has assured me that this will happen. So, I trust you not to be biased. Anyways, yeah, like we'll do some MVPs. Or maybe we'll do like a bigger show next week, because it's the final week. But anyways, MVPs for the week. Are you guys prepared?
I am
Who wants to
prepared.
go first?
I can go
Nick, you're
first.
prepared?
Alright, my
Alright, go
MVP
first.
for the week is because someone has taken a player that I wanted to put MVP to, and so my MVP for the week is Prayless against for his play. Admittedly, Maokai isn't a particularly difficult champion to play, but he definitely did put in a lot of work, and I did like his Maokai ults were better than a lot of Maokai ults I've seen. And admittedly, that isn't too difficult, but obviously, I rate our team as quite a strong team, and taking down our team um, requires quite strong individual play, and I think that Prayless was definitely the catalyst to a lot of good plays that Sin were making. So in part of due to him playing well on his champion, but I think that he was the catalyst for a lot of the good plays that Sin were making, and thus I credit him the MVP for the week.
seemed like a real struggle for you there, Nick. You're like, he played really well this week, but it was on an easy champion. But the mechanics and the ults were really well, but it's not hard to do that. You're just like swapping.
I mean,
It's like somebody had
it's
like a
true
gun to
though.
you.
It's like building him up and then knocking him down in the same sentence.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he
it's
did
like
play.
somebody.
It's not like he
somebody-
picked. It's not like he picked Lee Sin and then just shat all over us. Like he picked Maokai. He did his job, but I think that his job was was something that needed to happen, and I think that it's most valuable, not the person that played the best. And I think it most valuable. Praelis is definitely very invaluable for Sin's victory. So yes, I I give him MVP.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I think Praelis played really well this week. He probably would have been my backup MVP as well.
Yep. Wow.
Considering how well he did in the Maokai, especially in the early game too. Like Maokai's not exactly an early game champion, right? All right, Sombre, do you have an MVP or do I need to go next?
Yeah, I'd give my MVP to Eva. I think he played a really good game, much like Praelis, who was a catalyst to a lot of their success, as in just lets the 3 damage threats pop off because he did a really good job of peeling. I'm pretty sure he had some really clutch Rakan ults into Kalista ults. So yeah, he's my MVP for the week. I think he was really integral to their gameplay. And I'm pretty sure he's like one of their primary shot callers as well. So he went above and beyond this week to take the win against Abyss.
Not gonna lie, when you said Eva, I had no fucking clue who the hell you were talking about, and I was like, wait, Eva, that's
Oh,
Yuzuki.
Yuzuki. Yeah.
It does click after a while. All right, well, we got two Sin Academy players on the MVP list for this week, and sadly, sorry to Chaz, but I'm not making it through. I'm giving my one over to Harry. I don't know if you guys already noticed this episode, but I was very very complimentary of him, and I think he's honestly the biggest reason why Legacy won. Like I said, he was like a huge part of their team this week, and was almost 1v9ing at certain points in that game. So I got to hand it over to him. Exceptional performance. Yeah. So I guess we can round out the MVP section next week, though. I reckon we'll do some MVPs for each role. Maybe MVP for the regular split. Which there are some pretty good candidates for, right? It's like a lot of players are split here. Some, I guess, surprising, some not. And we'll see who's made it to playoffs after this week, so that'll be exciting. Anyways, move on to week 7 predictions. So we'll just do is we'll just go around in a circle, and if you guys want to say anything with your prediction, I guess we will. Yeah, I guess you can do that, and yeah. So first up, Atletico versus Sin Academy. I don't know. I have no idea.
Confused.
You got if you guys are still watching this, you
Ah.
have to go back and watch Scott's eyes when he realized he had no idea. All right, I can go first. I'm gonna pick Atletico, to win this game. Although I would say this is like a 55 to Atletico, 45 to Sin is very close. Atletico have been, I guess they've had quite a few close games, and I do think that Atletico, especially Guncrab and Aladoric in the bottom lane, have impressed me quite a lot. And I think that I think they've just got a better read on the meta and that sort of stuff. And I just like the way that Atletico play versus Sin, where they play like really aggressive in the early game, and Sin play quite passive in the early game. And I think that sort of matchup style will work really well for Atletico in this game. That being said, if Sin win, I would not be too surprised, because Atletico, the nature of their play style, where they play very scrappy, it just doesn't really lead to too many clean wins. So if Sin win, I wouldn't be too surprised. But that being said, I do think that Atletico will win.
Somber?
I'd give it to Atletico as well. Like, just to echo on what Nick said, I think they're definitely more hungry for the win than Sin. It really just depends how complacent Sin gets after locking a playoff spot. I think based on last week, they'd be really disappointed and they'd want to just smash it out this week. So I'd give it maybe 70% Atletico. And I'm pretty sure they'll take the win. It's a bit of a biased opinion because of Bedoink and
All
Dan.
right.
But
Yeah. The doink.
I think
Damn,
given what the match means for them, I think they'll like put 200% to it and they'll take the win.
All right, that is a pretty
That's a lot of
that's
effort.
A little
yeah,
biased.
yeah, that is a big
Alright,
percentage.
Scholar, I'll ask the question. So, Scholar, as someone that was prepared for the show, who would you say is going to win between Sin and Atletico?
That's what I get for trying to improvise. You know, I'm gonna give this one over to Sin.
Oh,
I
what a
felt like
fucking
last
surprise!
week. What do you mean? How's that a surprise?
Oh, don't
How's-
worry, contrarianist.
Oh, wait, did I miss a thing? Did I miss the sarcasm? I
No,
missed
you
the
didn't.
sarcasm, didn't I?
You
I
missed the
didn't.
joke.
I missed the joke.
No, you missed the
Shit.
joke.
Shit. All right. I guess I'll have to rewind and watch. Now I have a reason to watch the show as well. I'm gonna watch everything up to that point, just so that I get to see what joke that I missed. All right, so I'm gonna give this over to Sin. Again, a lot closer than Sombre gives it to Atletico. I'm gonna say like 55 to Sin. I felt like last week the solo lanes played a lot better than usual. Squidgy still played alright, even though he lost his 2 champions. So yeah, I think if Sin can pull that level of performance out again, I think Sin's gonna win.
Can I forgot one last point of mine. Are they Atletico or blue side? That was another.
Atletico blue side.
Atletico or blue side. I think blue side is
Oh, in
very.
that case, it's 70% chance that Atletico wins.
Oh, copy me.
I
dude.
mean, yeah. So,
Oh.
It's an Atletico win.
yeah, that was another reason I wrote down that I forgot to say. Yeah, Atletico is blue side, and I think blue side is very much favored in close matchups. A lot of it just comes down to draft, and blue side is, in my opinion, favored in the current meta. So I think that would be another reason to tip Atletico over the edge, but it's a very
Alright.
thin edge.
So we don't even need to ask you about the next series and just pick the blue side team every time.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Nox side is on
Yeah,
blue side.
Nox
as
side
well.
is blue
Nox
side.
side's on blue side,
So-
Lynx is on blue side, so we can just skip
It's a
right
Nox
through
side
me.
win.
See, I'm proud of the fact that Sombre knows which side of the map he's on, because I feel like if that was like Raid and he was an OCS, I feel like he would have no idea. It'd be like the day, like it would be like lobby for the match, and then he's just like, "Hey guys, which side do we go on? Do we hit up blue or red
He wouldn't
side?"
even know who he's playing against.
Sombre. Oh no, now I'm scared. All right. We've got Lynx versus Outlaws. Why couldn't any of these other matchups be first? These are also one-sided. Like I was improving, and it happens to be like the one close matchup. I'm giving this one to Outlaws because Outlaws is a significantly better team. Lynx lost a lot of the good players in their roster. It's kind of just Nana's left now. And as much as I love Christmas trees, yeah, this is Outlaws. I'm giving this a pretty huge percentage towards them. Sombre.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think Outlaws will take this one pretty convincingly, and even if Lynx were to take this, I think they just simply get out macroed by any team they play in the semifinals. Like Nick said before, they've been swapping roster a lot, and their players are like kind of weak in each role, in my opinion, and their macro is very weak. So probably 80% Outlaws for me.
Yeah, I think Outlaws
Right.
should. I think Outlaws should win this game, and by a pretty high percentage. So yeah, I think that Outlaws will win.
Yeah, I'm going 100% Outlaws. No 80s. It's literally no chance that. Nah. Just kidding. Yeah, I'd say 80, 90 is probably the correct percentage. All right. So Noxide versus Abyss. So next is winning the series.
Wait, which
And
team is
Sombre
blue
versus
side?
the series.
Oh shit, Nox side.
We're blue side. Yeah.
I still think we'll win. We have a better logo.
Oh,
Nah, I think we'll win.
Ouch.
I don't know. I can't really say anything other than it's my team, and I will always predict my team to win. So, yeah,
That's fair.
best of luck.
Sombre.
I'll give Noxide a 1% chance of winning. So then if we do win, I can quote this and Twitter will pop off. But in all honesty, I think it's probably like 90% to Abyss. They've got much stronger players across the board, and their macro is a hell of a lot better than ours, just based on standings and just week-to-week gameplay. So yeah, I give it to Abyss.
I can't wait for Noxide to win now. I'm just gonna like
1%, 1% Noxide.
laugh in both of your
Oh,
faces.
I'm not. We need to
I
win
was a bit
this
like.
game.
You'll have to get the belt out if you lose to us.
So Somber will be like, like really happy, and I'll just be like, "I told you were gonna win it." Now, I'm sorry, I gotta give this one to Abyss as well. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just even looking at the standings, right? I think, whilst Noxide is probably one of the best teams to be in relegations, I don't think that they'll be able to contend against Abyss, who are probably contenders for winning the split and going into the promotion tournament. All right, Legacy Genesis versus Corvidae. This is literally the same answer. Corvidae does not stand a chance against Legacy Genesis. Like, even if they do get that early game advantage, it's like I think Sombre and you both said, like, they build these advantages, know nothing what to do with them, no grouping, and no closeout. So I'm giving this one pretty big percentage over to Legacy Genesis as well.
Yeah, definitely think Legacy Genesis will take this convincingly because Corvidae's only win condition so far seems to be playing around Taka, and you can't do that against Harry and Babip. Like, I think they'll get out 2v2'd, and then the game will just fall apart from there. It'll be a pretty, I'd say, a sub 30-minute win for Legacy.
Nick?
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. I don't really think that Legacy will be able to win.
All right.
We have a guest in the back.
We do have a guest in the back. He's like, I want to comment on this. I want to say that Corvidae is going to make it this time.
Corvidae's
gonna-
one fan.
They're going to
Corvidae's
succeed.
one supporter is in the back.
Yeah.
He lives with
Oh
Nick.
no. He saw the
left.
standings. He saw the standings and
Oh,
he's gone.
jeez.
He's
He
upset.
had to evacuate.
He had to evacuate. He saw that they were 1 and 5, and oh wait, did you tell him it was a forfeit game, Nick?
What the fuck are you talking about?
Talking about the guest.
The guest?
Yeah,
That was
whoever was standing behind you. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, actually, maybe that won't even be cropped in though on the camera, just so people
Nah.
do know if you can't see who was standing behind Nick, that there was a person standing behind Nick. That's what we were talking about.
That wasn't just
anyways,
a person, that was my father.
that was your father.
Mhm.
Oh, the legend that
The
produced you,
legend
Nick.
himself.
Ex OCS pro Nicholas Mackenzie's father. Anyways, okay, so I guess we're pretty sorted on all the matches then. We're pretty agreed apart from the Sin vs Atletico. So I guess that's going to be our match of the week, right? If you're going to watch one game of OCS this week, watch that game. And it's the first one up, so no
Yep.
excuse not to watch
Yeah,
it.
you
Watch
can-
it and then go eat dinner.
Yeah, we'll close the stream.
Close the
If-
stream after that.
If there's any upsets, watch them later.
Yeah. No. Nah, you gotta watch Noxide vs the best too.
I have to watch it as well.
You have to.
I have to watch it.
Jesus.
If we
Alright, I got 2 questions to end off the show. First of all, who is winning OCS? And I'm gonna start off with Sombre because I feel like I know what your answer is gonna be, Nick.
really,
Yeah.
I've become predictable.
Well, I know what Nick's answer is, and I probably am inclined to agree. I think Abyss will take the split. Not convincingly. I think the final would be close, maybe like a 3-1. But I think semifinals they'll definitely take it 2-0. They've got like players and staff that have much more experience and are like veterans in the scene compared to the other OCS teams. So I think that'll like carry them through because it doesn't really show in best of ones. Like the experience that Frey and Cruden have. But it'll definitely show in a best of 3 when players aren't prepared for that. And I know firsthand that best of 3s are like really stressful, especially if it goes to the wire. So I'd expect Abyss to take the whole playoffs.
I mean, obviously, I choose us. I think the best. I wanted to echo the sentiment of I think best of 3 is very important, as well as finals being best of 5. Our players, with the exception of Paprise and Swaith, have had a lot of best of experience, and we're quite a strong. I think we're a lot stronger team, stronger than most teams mentally when it comes to like after a loss. We can bounce back and figure out what went wrong and how we can correct it, and that doesn't reflect at all with best of 1. Like as soon as as soon as an OCS game goes, like you just jump into Discord and say, hey, that sucked, and hey, that was great, and then you go off. But in a best of series, like if you lose a game, you need to pull yourself back, and if you win a game, you need to keep a level head, and that's really important. I think that experience plays a really big role to that, as well as obviously adaptation through picks and bans, that sort of stuff. So that being said, I think that this split is really contentious when it comes to it. I think that Atletico can easily take it. I think that Genesis can easily take it. I think that we can easily take it. I think that Outlaws can easily take it. And I think that Sin can take it as well. So there's going to be very interesting playoffs and much more exciting than other splits of OCS where it was just like XL5 is going to crush this one, Chase Black is going to crush this one. Um, you know, those sort of things. I think it's going to be a much more exciting playoffs with a lot more series going down to the wire. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
All right. Actually, yeah. I guess I'll ask you. Would you agree with all of those contenders, Somber? Are there any teams that you think, I guess, have a particularly high chance other than Abyss? Or any which you would disagree with being contenders or finals?
The second best team I think that has a chance of winning is probably Sin. I think, well, given that they beat Abyss, you could probably make a strong case for them to take the whole thing. But I think like the mental experience and the mental strength will just really show in the semis and the finals, and Sin might crumble in the finals, might crumble in semi-finals. You don't know these things until you get into a best of 3. That's just how it is.
All right.
But
I'm
definitely any team can win. Like it's really close, like Nick said. But I just think Abyss will take it.
All right. I'm inclined to lean towards, I guess, probably Abyss as my favorite to take it. Yeah, just because of that incredible experience in the players. You know, like Frey definitely. You know, if he loses a game, he's gonna be back on track. You know, I mean, he played for Hellions, so he's used to losing. And you say like, you got to fix the problems. You know, Frey, after he loses a game, he just roll stops to mid. So he's sorted. Mike Lee, on the other hand, though, I don't know. I don't know if he can handle it, Nick. He played for, wasn't he on Direwolves and Legacy?
Yeah, but he went on to Abyss, and when you go on to Abyss, you just start losing. So he's used to it by now. So absolutely no fine, absolutely fine. I'm not sure. Paprise and Swaith are obviously the question marks. Like Paprise, first split of OCS, Swaith had splits in the OCS before or not, and then unfortunately had a freak accident where he couldn't play for Sin Academy anymore. I'm not sure what happened there. He got banned for boosting Scott.
Oh.
Yeah, and
Oh,
so
no.
those players like but I think a lot of it is coming down to like whenever a loss is occurring, you feed off the atmosphere of your team, and if the atmosphere of your team is like, this is what we need to do to win, it's a lot easier than everyone's like completely silent, and then you're like, damn, how do we lose? And you just start going through the game. I think that will be the most likely team to be able to push through that and figure out what went wrong. And I think that, as I said before, that's a really important skill in best of 3 that I don't think a lot of the other teams have necessarily practiced as much.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's the way you do it as well, right? Like, I mean, when I was coaching Abyss OPL at the end of last split, it's like, the moment they come back into the room to chat to you, and they've lost the game, and no matter what team it's against, you just literally start putting up points like you're going to change for the next game, right? You're just like, we're going to do this differently, we're going to do this differently, we're going to do this differently. Just completely changes the mentality, I guess. Whereas I guess some of these OCS teams, especially the ones with that good coaching staff, could perhaps suffer a bit from losing a game and then having the mentality suffer. Yeah. Or I guess it's a good job Burstfire wasn't coaching Legacy when they hit the best of 3. You
They would
imagine that
implode.
after game 1? Just like, I told you we should have picked Sona. 68% win rate in solo queue.
Yeah, he'd pull up the op.gg and he'd say, "Alright, guys, this is what we're doing for game 2. Let's let's throw it at the wall, see if it sticks."
Yep. Jesus. All right. Okay, and I guess the final question, which I have, is either Corvidae or Noxide getting relegated?
Can I answer this first?
I'm gonna give this one to
Yeah,
Nick first because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had obviously, for people who don't know, I actually worked with Open Ladder last split with Abyss, and we promoted in through the qualification tournament. And I have been keeping an eye out on Open Ladder, and there's this one team that's just been destroying Disown. If people don't know, their roster is Redemption, and this is like Riven, one tricky plays like Riven, Fiora, those kind of champions that you associate with carry top laners. Vengeance LX. If people don't watch the solo queue ladder, you probably don't know him, but He's a very high-rated solo queue player, and he seems to have been joining a team, which is quite interesting because he seemed to be a player that was only interested in playing OPL. And so he's joined an open ladder team, and they're doing quite well. Their mid laner is Asian Shani, again like a high elo player, and then a mid laner, and I think he was a bit unlucky to miss out on OCS, to be honest. And then the ADC is Ecotoxic, and I think that Ecotoxic has improved significantly as a player since we last saw him in the OCS. Like, I'm not sure about his mentality, which was an issue of his, but at least his gameplay. I've spectated his solo queue games, or games that he's in, and he seems to be a lot more solid than what was before. He seems to be a lot more reserved, and I guess it reflects in the way that Disown play. They play very heavily around their top side, with Redemption playing like Riven's just a permaban sort of thing you have to do against him, that sort of stuff. But in regards to them against Noxide and Corvidae, the problem with playing open ladder is that the level of competition that you're against is quite low, and so a lot of issues that you face as a team just aren't punished. Like if you're just smashing teams in the early game and then you're building these advantages, you really don't uh, improve your macro play. And I'm not sure what Disown's coaching staff is, but I can't imagine it's too extensive. And so I think that when it comes to the OCS, the best of three tournament, and against team players that are similar to their own caliber, the OCS team that, despite not having good results, they have a much better understanding of macro play. And I don't really expect any OCS team to get relegated. And as Scott said before, I think the bottom OCS teams aren't as bad as they were in previous splits. Like when we played against Tana Mines Blue, they had a roster change top, a roster change jungle, a roster change mid, roster change ADC. There, and they kept their support. And so we were coming in as a team with the better macro play and the better team play, and that reflected in the game. Like we were able to take it out 2-0 based on team play. And I think that, assuming that the OCS teams keep onto their roster, I think that whichever team has the more consistent roster will win. And I think that the OCS teams do. And yeah, I don't really expect an OCS team to get relegated.
Sombre?
Um, well, I think that Disown is like a really strong team as well. I think they'll probably take the series. Wait, is OCS relegation's best of 5 or 3?
3.
Then I would say, I think they have a strong chance to 2-0 Corvidae. Like they have better players across the board, like just based on even like solo queue ranks or whatever. So I'd expect them to take that. As for our game, I'm actually not playing, but I can't reveal who my replacement is. It'll be a big surprise, I guess.
Christmas trees.
But yeah, he's the relegation king, so we're putting
Squishy
Christmas
boy.
trees in. No, but I think it'll probably be a close series. I'd say 2-1 to us over whoever we play. But I definitely think outside Disown, like the rest of the open ladder teams are just not good.
Yeah.
And they have like low quality gameplay outside of mechanics.
Whichever team finished 7th won't even be facing an actual team. Like they'll just be like mates and whatever. I haven't actually seen a proper team being formed outside of Disown. So if Disown are the only real team in open ladder, the rest of them are just like, playing with your mates sort of thing. So
I think
So
the next
Noxide winning that game against Corvidae during the split then was
yeah,
was pretty huge, right?
it's pretty pretty big.
pretty clutch.
Yeah.
I think the next best team is Flux, and they're like average to bad, just like how they play. We scrimmed against them a lot during the split, and I don't think they're good, so I would expect the team to win 2-0 against them. Against anyone else, like it should be an easy win as well.
Right. Okay.
It's just
Yeah. 'Cause I mean, Noxide will get choice, right? Or not choice. They'll get the better matchup.
Oh,
yeah, we'll get
yeah,
the easier opponent because we finished 7th.
Yeah.
what was it? There was
Okay. Yeah. So it was a
the
good
first
job you beat
place,
Corvidae.
at least last split, the first place OCS team got to choose whichever OCS team they wanted to play. That's how it worked last split. So
The first place open ladder.
yeah, it was really strange. And then we also got side selection. I was so confused when our owner told me that was going to be this case.
That is unusual.
I was really confused. Usually it's usually they give the home side to the OCS team that's defending, but it wasn't that case. I'm not sure if they're changing it because it was a bit of a meme because they didn't even stream the game. So I think they might be looking to change things. But at least last split, that was how it worked.
I mean, it should be the. I mean, you are the challengers, right? If you're coming from
Yeah,
open ladder
yeah, the
OCS,
challenges.
like
Yeah,
the advantages should be with the OCS team.
Yes, I
in my
agree.
opinion. But I mean, to be fair, I feel like I feel like you'd probably want to play against Corvidae anyways, right? As,
If you're an
unless it's-
OL team, you definitely want to play against Corvidae.
yeah.
Like you can just watch the games from the split, and Corvidae have had like, well, I guess they've had like more whitewashes than us, or just like really bad losses.
Yeah. Plus, yeah. I mean, it's an very inexperienced team, whereas there's still some experience on the Noxide roster. I mean, particularly like Relopolis now. He's been playing a heck of a long time, and he had that expert coaching from Nick. All right. I think we'll look to end up the show there. Unless you guys have anything else you want to say about OCS, or anything, or should we end that one up there?
We can
All right.
wrap it up.
No,
Awesome.
that's it.
I saw both of you shaking your heads, so I didn't wait for the reply. So this is the problem because most people probably got it on in the background, so they don't see the head shaking. They just think, oh, this Scott guy is such a rude guy. Like, what a dick. But no, they are shaking their heads. Maybe I'll just like say that out loud in future, Nick.
Great ocean split. See you guys next year. Those are my sentiments.
Those are your sentiments?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe, actually. We're very close to having a channel name. So if 13 of you just want to subscribe, that would be really nice. Sombre, you subscribed?
Of course, dude. Why
Alright.
wouldn't I be?
I don't know. Just checking.
I'm
alright.
subscribed. I follow on Twitter. Like
Oh.
on Facebook. The
Oh,
whole
dang.
9 yards, dude.
Wait, we have a Facebook? We have a Facebook?
Hey!
That's live. Alright. I'll end that one up there. Thanks for watching
Alright.
again.
All right.